The following is an independently produced community access program. The viewpoints expressed are those of the community access producer and do not reflect those of Shaw Cable Systems. The program is presented in response to CRTC policy guidelines regulating community programming.
Hi folks, and welcome to Calling BS on Shaw TV's Community Creations Television. I am your co-host Bryan Svensson, and then of course my co-host and good friend Shawn Nandel. What we do here on this show is we talk sports for about 12 minutes. We like to do it in topics of 3, and each topic we spend about 4 minutes on. We have a timer here. For those of you who haven't watched the show before, we have a timer here for us and a timer somewhere on the screen around here for you guys that counts down from 4 minutes. And as soon as that 4 minutes is up, we are done with that topic and moving on to the next. To keep things short, sweet, and concise, we will deliver to you all the hard-hitting criticisms that we feel necessary for each topic. And our 3 topics today, we're going to talk about the Raptors and their NBA playoff appearance. We're going to speak briefly about the NFL draft and what it held for certain teams and certain players. And we're going to discuss the second round of the NHL playoffs, which is actually just closing up. Only one more series left to go on that. So with that, we're going to start and talk about the Raptors. Now, of course, they lost in Game 7. 104-103 to the Brooklyn Nets. I felt that they really did well and got far for a team that looked like they were tanking after trading Rudy Gay mid-season. Yeah,
that's what I thought too. It didn't look particularly good at that time, but that was actually the turnaround in their season that they needed. For whatever reason, he's a good player. He just didn't fit in there. They got rid of Andrea Bargnani last offseason, thankfully. And a guy like Kyle Lowry really stepped up his game, and DeMar DeRozan was an all-star this year.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of Andrea Bargnani and getting rid of him, I read an interesting study on 538 that talked about how the Knicks actually would have been worse had Andrea Bargnani played all 20 games that he missed. So interesting there. In the playoffs, though, a couple of Raptors put up some really good numbers. You had DeMar DeRozan averaging about 23 points a game, 24, right around there. It's 23.9. You had Kyle Lowry averaging 21 points per game and 7 assists a game. You had Amir Johnson with 11 points a game and 6 rebounds, and Jose Valanciunas 11 points a game, almost 10 rebounds a game and a block per, which, you know, for starting 4 guys, that's pretty good. You got some solid bench production out of Vasquez. Patrick Patterson saw some decent time on the floor. Tyler Hainsborough got some minutes in there. And, of course, Terrence Ross, who is a defensive lockdown for them. It was really good for them. I thought it was a building experience going forward for them to learn. I thought they had a chance against the Nets, but the Nets just had way too much experience.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Guys like Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, guys who have won before.
Yeah,
and I think as the series went along too, that experience started to show.
Yeah, and the Raptors, while having a great player in DeMar DeRozan, don't exactly have a superstar like Deron Williams, however you want to pronounce that. You know, he is a superstar in the NBA. He tremendous point per game player. He controls the floor. He is great on assists. And another thing that I thought that the Raptors had a lot of problems with was controlling the offensive output of Joe Johnson.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he just seemed to provide an interesting matchup problem for the Raptors. Obviously has not been a problem so far for the Miami Heat.
Right.
So going forward into next year, what do you think the Raptors are going to do? Obviously, they need to maintain Kyle Lowry inside their system.
Absolutely.
And they have the space to pay him.
Yeah.
But other than that, where do you think they go from here? Do you think they just build on what they have and try and take the same players forward? Do you think they go out looking for another piece to the puzzle?
I like the core that they have. Obviously, re-signing Lowry is the big thing to do this offseason. Thankfully, Dwayne Casey's coming back. He's re-signed for 3 years, the head coach. In terms of going into next year, I wouldn't mind seeing them add some more veteran pieces. I think they were missing that kind of big veteran presence in their locker room in the playoffs. Like I said, as the series went along, the Nets didn't panic despite being down in the series because they have guys who have won before, and I think that's what the Raptors need.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree, and there will be probably some guys out there in the free agency market that they can add that add just a little bit more experience going forward. They have the cap space, and Masai Ujiri is a very smart man, very good GM. He's done some very good things for the Raptors organization so far. You know, considering that they didn't look to start off the season doing very well, to come within 1 point of being able to play the Miami Heat in round 2, I think that the Raptors should be proud of what they did.
I think so. They went way beyond my expectations this year. I didn't expect them to be a playoff team, and when they started off so badly again, it was just kind of like, oh, same old Raptors.
Yeah, exactly. So this is a big deal, and I think they do well next year. Moving on to our next topic, we're going to discuss briefly the NFL draft. So 4 minutes now ticking down. What surprised you the most about the draft?
Johnny Manziel falling to 22nd overall. Very surprised by that. I thought he would be a top 5 pick for sure.
Yeah, considering that Blake Bortles went at number 3. Now I have no problem with the quarterback Blake Bortles. I just dislike where the Jags picked him. Picking him at number 3, I think, is a big fault for them. I think that Bortles is a good quarterback, and would be a great quarterback going into the right situation. He's a big boy, has not a bad accuracy. Like he's good at that, and he's good at his reads. He's very good at running through his reads and learning about the defenses. Now, the problem that I have with Blake Bortles is that his mechanics break down when he's under pressure. Going to the Jaguars is not going to help that. 31st in the NFL in sacks allowed with 50 last year. 50 sacks allowed. Now, he strikes me way too much like Blaine Gabbert. A mistake that the Jaguars have made a couple of drafts ago. He is a big guy who's got questions about his arm strength and has questions about his mechanics under pressure. And it's the same old story. I think he's gonna be a big bust. Manziel, on the other hand, scores a 42 on the Wonderlic, is a highly capable playmaker, is a superstar in college football, is going to be a star in NFL football. He's got all of that personality and charisma that you want out of a guy to be a national player.
And Cleveland needs that right now.
Jacksonville could have used it too.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so this is a guy, now as long as he doesn't get hurt, because his size is a problem.
Yeah, that's the thing.
As long as he doesn't get hurt, he's going to be a star, and Cleveland needs it. My biggest problem with Cleveland picking him is telling him that he's going to be the backup quarterback. Why not make it a competition? You know, like I get that you have faith in Brian Hoyer. Great. He did good things for you last season, and you want to show confidence in him, but at least make it an open competition. Say, we're going to see how it is at a training camp.
Yeah, the guy has come in with great credentials at the college level. You should have him at least push for the starting job. The only thing we were talking about Manziel's size, that's a concern. Also, to the defenses he's going to go up against in that division, because you have the Bengals, the Ravens, and the Steelers. 3 really good defenses. Teams that usually have solid defenses every year.
But as I said, though, the guy has playmaking ability. He's athletic. He can move with his legs, and he's smart.
Yeah.
42 on the Wonderlic is about as good as it can get for a quarterback.
Sure, but doing it at the college level is a lot different than doing it at the pros.
I still think that he's going to do well, and you obviously have questions, but that's okay.
I still think he'll be okay. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying there might be some growing pains.
So how early do you think we see Manziel as the starting quarterback in Cleveland?
I think by the second half of the season we'll see him.
I'm saying by week 5.
Week 5?
I say by week 5.
I think by, I'll say week 8 or 9, something like that.
All right, I can dig it. For those Vikings fans in the province of Manitoba, we're going to talk a little bit about Teddy Bridgewater. Now, the Vikings trade up to pick him at the 32nd overall pick, the last pick in the first round, and I think that's a good thing for the Vikings. He's a solid pick. You know, he's got the athleticism. He's not a stupid guy. He does make he does make his proper reads. He's got good mechanics. He's got a cannon of an arm. He is going to have offensive threats there in Minnesota as well. Adrian Peterson, a big deal. Greg Jennings is finally going to have a quarterback to throw to. 2 concerns that I have about Teddy Bridgewater is he's got small hands, Dante Culpepper-esque hands, and potential fumble concern. And I'm wondering how he's going to adapt right away to the pressure that's going to be put on him in Minnesota.
Yeah, for sure. You know, a guy who I was surprised, speaking of quarterbacks, I was surprised A.J. McCarron fell all the way down to the 5th round.
It's because of his attitude. You know, he's got attitude issues, but in the NFL, what quarterbacks don't?
Doesn't Manziel have those same question marks, though?
Yeah, exactly. So you're right.
Yeah.
Should have gone higher. Done with that topic for now, and moving on finally to the NHL playoffs. Second round almost finished. 3 series now done. We have the Habs, the Rangers, the Blackhawks moving on, and Game 7 tomorrow night in between the Kings and the Ducks. Now, or I guess tonight when this airs finally tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
So, let's first talk about the Habs-Bruins series, which concluded last night in a thrilling game, really, and which saw Montreal controlling, in my opinion, most of the series.
I would agree with that. They really threw. They didn't play into Boston's hands. Boston was trying a lot of extracurricular stuff, to put it nicely, and the Habs, to their credit, they didn't get sucked into that, and that's good on them. They played their style of game, and when Boston realized they couldn't suck the Habs into playing that kind of dirty style that they were doing, they got frustrated, obviously, and yeah, that spilled over into when they were shaking hands in the line after the game. Milan Lucic said some not so kind things to Dale Weiss on the
Alexei
Habs.
Yemelin as well.
Yeah, apparently so. But yeah, very impressive win by the Habs. I'm sure a lot of people had the Bruins winning the Stanley Cup this year, including myself. But it seems like their kryptonite has always been the Habs. They go through everyone else no problem, but Montreal, for whatever reason, there just seems like this big mental hurdle.
Yeah, and part of that hurdle was also physical in the form of the absolute monster between the pipes that is Carey Price. Yeah. Now, I'm just going to throw a stat here at you. In elimination games in 2014, including the Olympics,
5-0.
5-0 with 5 goals allowed. Mm-hmm. That's pretty friggin' good.
Yep.
The man has been stellar this postseason and is probably the biggest reason that the Montreal Canadiens are doing as well as they are.
Yep.
For people who had questions when they traded Yaroslav Halak about whether or not Price could be an elite goaltender, he is certainly showing it, having a Patrick Waugh-esque postseason this year.
I had my doubts about that as well, but it took him a few years, but yeah, he's finally living up to that hype.
All right, now, so the Penguins get bounced in the second round in Game 7 by the New York Rangers, coming from behind, down 3-1 in the series, winning Game 7. Henrik Lundqvist talking about goaltenders great in elimination. He is 5-1 in Game 7, 10-2 in elimination games.
Yep.
Want to talk about a clutch goaltender and a clutch team. Wow.
Yeah, for sure. And then on the other side, you have Marc-Andre Fleury, who, although I don't think he was as terrible as the last few years.
He didn't win in the series.
Yeah, he didn't make the big saves that they needed in the second half of the series. And what do you do if you're the Penguins now?
You gotta rebuild.
Yeah.
You have to. The Dan Bylsma's gone. Yeah. You have to think that Chris Letang is probably gone. Crosby and Gino are going to be back, more than likely. But Letang is going to be gone, and you're going to see pieces in and out being dealt to try and acquire some young talent, because it's been 5 years since they were hearkened as the new NHL dynasty, and they've only won 1 cup. So
yeah, exactly. And they are 4-5 in playoff series since winning that cup.
All 5 of those losses have been to lower seeds as well.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not sure if Ray Shero, the GM, has the guts to make a bold move like that, although he might not be the GM much longer anyway.
Right. Let's talk briefly now about the Chicago Blackhawks and the Minnesota Wild. The Wild surprising, winning 2 games out of that series. Yeah. Their bright point really being Ilya Bryzgalov. Who would have thought going into that series? Talking more about goaltenders.
Yeah, they had Darcy Kemper and Ilya Bryzgalov in the playoffs this year. This season was a mess for them. They had 7 goalies suit up for them at some point. 5 of them played. But yeah, they went deep in the playoffs with those 2 guys. I actually thought they deserved a better fate. I thought they outplayed Chicago, but Chicago got that timely scoring. And
from guys who know how to score.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought the Wild deserved a better fate, and they did far better than I thought they would in the playoffs.
Absolutely. Running out of time, who you got tomorrow?
LA.
All right, and we are out of time for today. I just want to thank you guys for watching here. Of course, Shaw TV's Community Creations for putting us up on television and giving us such a stellar opportunity. And of course, to you guys for watching every single week. If you want to follow us on Twitter, @CallingBSShow. Of course, you can find all of our episodes on YouTube there, along with our audio podcast that happens once every 2 weeks, should be up on Friday as well. I want to thank our one-man awesome crew, Darren Marash, again for a stellar performance behind the camera. And for Bryan Svensson and Shawn Nendell, I want to thank you for watching Calling BS, and have a great week.
The proceeding was an independently produced community access program. The viewpoints expressed are those of the community access producer and do not reflect those of Shaw Cable Systems. The program is presented in response to CRTC policy guidelines regulating community programming.